Smart, playful, and fun. No wonder dolphins are the darlings of the ocean. Their streamlined bodies, smooth skin, iconic flipper and bottlenose draw crowds in sea parks. But in some parts of the world, they're not the well-loved sea mammals seen in parks and films, but the victims of an industry built around hunting them and sourcing their meat. The Oscar-winning documentary The Cove shows the brutal horrors of how dolphins are hunted and killed every year in Japan. Before The Cove made it to theaters, the director and his crew fought an uphill battle to get it filmed. It had to deal with intimidation, derision, and anger from local police and the Japanese local government. Once the film was shown, the director Louie Psihoyos and his crew were banned in Japan. Once a famous photographer for National Geographic, Psihoyos continues his mission of rescuing sea life. The organization he founded, the Oceanic Preservation Society, works to create awareness and reverse human damage to the seas. Although Psihoyos' documentary made people aware of the dangers to dolphins, he is caught in a web of controversy over his method of filming.
Back then, there was 4 hours and about 5 minutes of drive time. So we snuck in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
We set the cameras. These are prototypes of the first hard drive cameras ever made. We set those in the Cove, and my team went to bed. We'd been up for a couple days.
Right.
And I was hanging from a rope with black paint on like a ninja. And then we had to come back the next night to retrieve them. When I was hanging from the rope, I had a camera, so I'm watching it through the lens. I mean, it was horrifying. You couldn't believe what was going on. Mm. And then we got really scared because we didn't know, nobody knew what happened back at the Cove. Nobody knew how they were killing these animals. And then once we had that footage, you know, we realized, then we got scared because we knew that we had enough evidence that we could really do some damage to some, you know, people were going to get hurt economically.
Right.
And when you start hurting people economically, then they start fighting back. But we got out of the country before, you know, they really found out what we were doing.
Mm-hmm. They accuse you of using, you know, hidden microphones. They accuse you of using cameras that were disguised as a rock in that specific cove.
It's a national park. You're allowed to take pictures in a national park, right? The accusations against us about hidden cameras in the park, big deal. Compared to the potential good that's coming out of it, there's, you know, tens of thousands of dolphins that are saved because of what we did. That's huge. You look at SeaWorld stock and that's crashing like that. I'm very proud of the efforts that we've done. It's, you know, when you can leave a positive mark on the planet,
right?
It's a good day.
What's really driving those people of doing so, and even driving them to accuse you of all kinds of hilarious stuff after the movie was being viewed by people around the world?
Our cultural tradition started in 1964. You know, there's some evidence that 400 years ago, they got a couple of pilot whales, which are big dolphins. They scared them into a cove and they killed a couple of them. They only started doing the dry fisheries with fast boats. They couldn't do that with canoes, and, you know, 400 years ago, where they get whole pods in there. This only started in 1964. So this myth that they're trying to propagate, that this is their tradition, it's like, well, and you know, I don't buy the tradition argument. There's we had traditions of not allowing women to vote. We had a tradition of slavery in our country. Some traditions are just bad traditions, and we have to give those up. So, listen, you know, it's very difficult to go into another country and tell them what to eat. But the people in Japan didn't even know that dolphin meat was poison. Now, the most deleterious effects to a human being is when it's a mother with a baby. The mercury poisoning, all dolphin meat is toxic with mercury. Any meat that's been tested by our organizations, even the Japanese government, for the last 20 years is found to be toxic by the standards if it was fish. It's not fish, it's a mammal. But because it's a mammal, they say, oh, okay, it's different. But it's poisonous. So I've seen pregnant women at the market in Japan buying dolphin meat because they propagate this myth that it's healthy. Buying dolphin meat for protein would be like smoking cigarettes to get your vitamin C. It doesn't make any sense
And
at
yet
all.
that's the message they've been trying to get out to the people.
We try to use the word mercury in every sentence we talk to when we talk to the Japanese press. We don't talk about sentient intelligence because it's hard to win that argument, because look what we do in America. We kill pigs, which are, some people say, as smart as most dogs.
Are Japanese press really reporting about this?
Oh boy, the press we had was unbelievable. Yeah, I mean, still, you know, Margaret Mead said very famously, Margaret Mead, the anthropologist, she said, never doubt that a few thoughtful citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. And it's true. I mean, you know, today at the talk I was talking about how to change culture, you only need 10% of the population, which is amazing, because you know, you think, okay, you need to have 51, you need a majority, you think, but once 10% of the population is committed, then it's like the analogy that we use, it's like steam. It just it creates a boiling point, and then steam happens, and then the rest of the population, the majority, follows the minority, which is the opposite of the way that you think it should happen. So that's what I've learned from this, is that if, you know, look what's going on in our country right now. I think what we have to stay steady with is that we just need 10%. To 10% to really feel it, to be really active, to be, you know, inspired. That's what it takes.
Really?
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, from your national politics, it seems that there has been a divide between what they call the elites or the establishment, and also what they call the grassroots real people. Of course, these are very blurred, you know, categories. So
Right.
10%, is that really going to solve the problem? Or you have to really talk to everybody of those fishermen in that little village in Taiji to convince them this is not the thing to do.
What we did to that film, I'll tell you what we did to Taiji.
Okay.
We sent 2 suitcases full of 3,444 DVDs in Japanese to everybody in the town. We had Japanese activists handwrite,
Handing them now.
mail one to everybody that lived in the town. So the idea that we had was, if we could just reach 10% of the people in that town, that's all we need. And that's what happened. Because imagine this, one mother who sees that and says, oh my God, I didn't know that dolphin meat was poison. She tells her neighbor, they tell their neighbor, you don't need the whole town to be inspired. But now they can't sell dolphin meat like they did. They have to human beings. What they're doing is they're using dolphin meat mostly for pet food now, because they can't, we killed their market. People know about it. So, you know, Blackfish, another film that came out about the captive dolphin industry, we sent a copy of Blackfish in the Cove to everybody that sat, the 10 major investment firms that back SeaWorld. We sent copies to every one of the people that sat on the board of directors of those 10 major investment firms. And once they see that, you know, we think, we don't know if they're going to see it or not, but if, let's say even their son opens it up and watches it and goes, oh my God, Dad, look at this. That's where change happens.
Right.
You never know how that 10%'s where it's going to come from. So what we do is we spread them, you know, these films like seeds, and you never know what's going to pop up. So that's, you know, our strategy is that we just keep on trying everything until something works.
You have people over there. How do they work?
Oof, we work on campaigns. We just try to keep it, you know, any kind of news that we can. We support other people, other groups doing work over there. I can't go, my group can't go to China, to Japan, because there's arrest warrants out for me. I would get arrested if I went back to Japan.
Oh.
So we have other people working on it, other groups working on it.
Is that the price you have to pay, that you would hardly have any access to Japan anymore as a result of this documentary, which woke people up?
Yeah, we knew that would be impossible to go back for me going forward, but that's, you know, it's a small price to pay. I mean, I love Japan. I have nothing against Japanese people. It's a small group of people actually doing this. And we keep on hammering the idea that these animals, it's not just that they're sentient, intelligent. We kill a lot of animals as a species. You know, humans kill a lot of animals that I don't think there's any need to do that anymore. We can evolve past that. But these animals are brutalized in ways that no animal should.
We've seen that from the movie.
Yeah, Jacques Cousteau said that the educational benefit of watching a dolphin in captivity would be learning about humanity only by watching a prisoner in solitary confinement. There's nothing to be learned by watching it. You're watching a spectacle of dominance when you watch a dolphin show. So we'd like to get that word out. So films are a powerful weapon. You know, they're a weapon of mass construction. You know, you drop a bomb, you kill people. You make a film, you create allies. People that see the Cove, you can't unsee it. So they're active on this. It's that film's been out for 6 years right now, and it keeps on going.
How did you manage to convince them of doing this? Which is the most difficult one? Tell me.
I was at a climate meeting with under Ban Ki-moon, the Secretary General of the United Nations, with the people underneath him working on climate change before COP21. Yeah. And I'm with all the heads of the organizations like Sierra Club, Greenpeace, Sea Shepherd, all gathered in one sort of a big summit. And the leader of this convention asked me to come and talk about our new movie, Racing Extinction. Mm-hmm. I said, "Oh, the movie's done. I don't really want to talk about that. I want to talk about, does anybody here know Bill de Blasio, the current mayor of New York?"
Yeah.
And the guy whose house it was is Norman Lear, most famous TV producer in America. He's leaning against the wall and he goes, "I know Bill." He flew to New York the next day. The following day, I get an email from the mayor of New York and said, "How do we make this happen?"
Oh, Empire State Building we're talking about, my friend.
Yeah. So we had it took 4 years, but it took a long time, but we just kept pushing
every time.
Yeah, and people thought it was crazy. It's like, oh my God, here he comes again with this idea. But once you pulled it off, when people were saying that it'll be a non-event, like it never happened, we had rented a place, a viewing platform at a restaurant bar overlooking the Empire State Building, and my two sons were there, and we were up there, we're taking pictures, and one of my sons goes, "Dad, there's people down on the street." I thought, okay, well, of course it's New York. Mm-hmm. And I looked down over the head, and it was like a parade on Fifth Avenue. We shut down Fifth Avenue. There was taxis stopping in the middle of the street because everybody's looking up.
They want to look at that.
And they're stopped with cabs with their fares still in it, and they're getting out and looking at this amazing stuff. There's kids sitting on cars at 11 o'clock at night. We stopped New York in its tracks, and when people said, "Well, it'll never work out," and then we're the top trending story on Facebook and Twitter worldwide, you start to realize, okay, there's no such thing as impossible. It's only a limitation. Anything can be done.
But it's not just an advocacy issue. It is also technical issues. How would you make those projections as vivid, as colorful, as beautiful as you can, so that to really get your message out that sea life, wildlife should really be appreciated?
Yeah, what we do with these events, because I'm a photographer first and foremost.
I know.
So what we try to do at these events is make it simple for everybody to take a beautiful picture. You don't have to be a great photographer to come to the Empire State Building and do an amazing picture that all your friends will love it on Facebook or Twitter or whatever you have here, the equivalent. The same thing if we do it at the Performing Arts Center. Yeah. We'll make it so it's absolutely gorgeous. We'll light it so you'll look like the best photographer in the world. That will have what they call hero images. Yeah. Wherever you stand, we'll make it so we can make it beautiful wherever you're standing.
You started as a photographer for National Geographic. Some of the photos you took then shocked your viewers at the time. How could you make sure that you could always grasp the media and the means to get your message across to the people?
Well, first of all, I'm always thinking of the audience, whoever it is. I'm always trying to put myself in their chair and trying to make something amazing, something spectacular, something interesting, something that I would be interested in.
I remember the photo you make about Bill Gates when he was still very young.
Right.
Using one CD in his hand and sitting on a whole pile of paper, suggesting how much information you can put over there in that little CD. Mm-hmm.
Now, see, I take my inspiration from a lot of different people. My idea originally was to lay out all this paper on a big room, like one piece of paper on the floor, and put 330,000 sheets of paper on the floor. There wasn't a warehouse big enough to do that. And then my assistant was a bartender, and he said, "Well, why not stack the paper up like bar napkins? If you ever see them, like they're all stretched out like that." And then we drilled a hole through the bottom, put a ferro bolt at the bottom with a steel plate, and we had cranes to lift it. So we did something spectacular, but it was outside the box. So I tend to hire people that that are creative, but not necessarily photographers. They're just they just think differently.
You've done so many outstanding photos, I would say, that would impress people. People can remember it throughout their life. Which one image you think we should really look at?
I know sometimes it comes in weird places. I mean, one of the stories I was most proud of is Geographic wanted me to do a story in the sense of smell.
The smell.
And we looked at it for a couple of weeks, and the managing editor said, "Well, there's no way you can photograph a smell." And I said, just leave me alone. Just give me a few months, which wasn't a lot of time back then. And I did a picture that became very, very famous. One of the most famous in the magazine history. You know, probably aside from Afghan Girl, it's one of the most famous. It's a
What is it?
it's a group, the sense of smell. So I thought, okay, there must be some professional noses, right, in the business.
Yeah.
So there's a picture I took of, there's a group of ladies, they're professional, you know, armpit testers. So it's a funny picture because no matter how bad your job is, you can look at that and say, at least it's not that bad.
That's what you're thinking when you're making your movies, no matter what the dangers are ahead.
I could be doing that.
Thank you so much, Louie.
Thank you for having me.
What a
Appreciate
pleasure.
it. Likewise.
Thank you.
Cheers.